It's over. What was dragging you backward wasn't cut by chance. It was severed by heaven. You didn't lose. You were liberated. And this moment, right here, is the very first second of the future that's been sitting behind a locked door, waiting for you. I know it felt different. I know that when it happened, it felt like a loss. It felt like something was being ripped away from you without your permission, without you doing anything wrong, and without an explanation that made any sense. But what I did in you, I did for you. That cut was a surgery, not a punishment. And before this message is over, you're going to know exactly what was removed, why it had to go, and how to step into what begins today. Stay with me until the end. Before we finish, you're going to receive the spiritual name for what was blocked and the 3 movements to step into the future that starts today. You know those nights when sleep just won't come, because your mind decides to take a full inventory of everything that hasn't arrived yet. You lie there, eyes closed, and instead of rest, you get a checklist. The things that stayed behind. The projects that didn't turn into what they were supposed to. The relationship that walked out the door without a single word of closure. The season of your life that ended before you even had a chance to say a proper goodbye. You replay every item in silence, in the dark, with a cruel precision your daytime mind could never manage. And the weight feels heavier than when you first laid down. You toss, you turn, and you think, what is wrong with me that I can't just get over this? You know what it's like to get up before the rest of the world and walk over to the mirror. Not to get ready, just to look, to try and find some kind of link between the person you were when you knew exactly where you were going and the person standing in front of you now. The person looking back isn't the same one who started that last chapter, but they aren't the one who's going to start the next one yet either. You're in between identities, and in that gap, the mirror shows a space that doesn't have a name yet. You stare longer than you should, and you whisper to yourself, in a voice no one else hears, what happened to me? You know what it's like to type, I'm doing okay, to someone who actually cares while your hand is shaking over the screen. You seek. You dedicate yourself. You do everything right, and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part? You start wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're being heard up above, if it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual, with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video screen. You hit send. You see the read receipts pop up. You lock your phone. And then you sit there with the crushing weight of knowing you just lied to someone who actually wanted to know. Because being seen as stuck in the past feels more terrifying than carrying it alone. Because explaining what's going on would require you to name something you can't even fully identify yet. So you learn to smile when they ask. You learn to say, I'm making it. You learn to change the subject with a lightness that no one realizes is a rehearsed performance. You know what it's like to open social media and see everyone else moving forward. New wins. New chapters. New stories starting with an energy you can't even remember feeling. And then that quiet, cruel sensation sets in. The world is in motion, and you're stuck at a standstill. Like there's an invisible anchor chained to your ankles, buried in the sand of a moment that's already gone, keeping you from moving no matter how hard you pull. You don't understand why. You did everything right. You prayed. You waited. You pushed. And yet, the weight of being stuck is suffocating. If you recognized yourself in any of those scenes, this message didn't find you by accident. That like button is your public Amen. Heaven records what you confess in the open. Hit it right now. And here is what you're going to receive before this message is over. First promise. What you interpreted as loss, as abandonment, or as failure was actually God removing the anchor that was stopping your future from moving toward you. It wasn't a punishment for what you did. It wasn't a lack of care for what you asked for. It was divine surgery, and like every surgery, it happened without the patient choosing the timing, without the patient understanding the procedure while they were on the table, and with a precision that only makes sense after the healing is complete. Second promise. Before this message ends, you're going to receive the Breakthrough Protocol. 3 concrete movements to activate, starting today. The future that was sealed but blocked. Not when you're ready. Not when you understand it all. Today. Because breakthrough doesn't wait for you to feel worthy. It waits for you to take the first step. Third promise. By the end of this message, you will be able to declare out loud that the past no longer has authority over what's coming. And that declaration isn't symbolic. It's a spiritual act that seals what was opened here. What you confess out loud changes what heaven hears from you. I put you here because this word is for you, not for someone near you, for you. The removal you felt wasn't me leaving you. It was my love operating on a level you can't see from the inside yet. Close your eyes for a second. Look away from the screen. Stay with me now, because the next few minutes are the most important part of this entire message. There have been signs scattered throughout your life lately. Signs that heaven was already moving before you even noticed. Signs you called by other names because no one ever taught you the right ones. I'm going to call them by their real names right now. Sign number 1. You feel a longing for something that, when it was actually there, never gave you any real peace. Memory is a liar. It's warm. The past, in the version your memory keeps, has been edited in a way the present never was. The rough edges have been sanded down. The hard days have been compressed. The good moments have been expanded. The result is a version of the past that feels impossible to find in the future, because it never actually existed that way in the first place. But when you stop and think honestly, you know. The real experience was a constant grind. It was a permanent adjustment. It was you molding yourself to fit into a space that was made for who you used to be, not who you were becoming. The peace you're missing never came from that place. It came from the rare moments when that space gave you just enough room to breathe. You call it nostalgia. What it really is, a signal that the cycle had reached its expiration date. That longing doesn't prove you lost something good. It proves you grew too big for where you were. Sign number 2. Doors closing suddenly, unexpectedly, and without an explanation that satisfies. A job that ended even though you were performing. A relationship that vanished without a real conversation. A project you poured time, money, and energy into that just wouldn't move, no matter how hard you pushed or how many times you pivoted. Things that were there, and then suddenly, they weren't. You called it bad luck, a dry spell, a losing streak. You asked what you were doing wrong. You reread old emails trying to find the mistake that explained it all. What it really is, heaven closing cycles you would never have closed on your own. Because you're loyal. Because you're a fighter. Because you don't quit easily. And sometimes that's a virtue, but sometimes it's a chain. And when the chain is too loyal to something that's already dead, the only way to move someone who's stuck is to take away the option to stay. Sign number 3. A growing sense of strangeness with old friends. Conversations that used to be easy now feel heavy. Connections that used to fuel you now leave you drained. You felt off around the same people, in the same environments, and you couldn't explain why. Maybe you blamed yourself. Maybe you thought you were becoming difficult, or arrogant, or antisocial. That something was wrong with you that was pushing away the familiar. What it really is, a frequency realignment. Before every major shift, your spirit starts to feel the distance between where you are and where you're going. And that distance shows up in your relationships first. The people who stayed at the previous level aren't bad people. They just aren't equipped for the next chapter. The discomfort you feel around them is your spirit warning you that the next chapter is bigger than the room you're currently in. Sign number 4, a strange inner stillness that arrived in the middle of a season that didn't justify any stillness at all. Not depression, not resignation, not the calm of someone who gave up. A different kind of quiet, a stability that didn't depend on your problems being solved. The world around you was still loud, still uncertain, still chaotic, but inside there was something steady, almost serene, and you didn't know where it came from or how to explain it. You were suspicious of this peace. You thought you were just getting numb. You thought you were losing your edge or your will to fight. What it really is, a sign that your spirit had already received what your mind was still processing. The peace that surpasses understanding doesn't make logical sense. It doesn't wait for the circumstances to get better before it shows up. It shows up when something bigger than the circumstance is holding what you can't hold alone. That stillness wasn't indifference. It was heaven's signature, proof that something had been settled on a level your eyes couldn't see yet. This next sign is the hardest one to hear. It's the one the enemy has spent the most time trying to make you ignore, because if you understand this one, everything changes. Sign number 5, dreams of places you've never been. Flashes of opportunities in completely new contexts, outside of your history, outside of what you're used to expecting. Faces you don't know yet. Environments that have nothing to do with what you've built so far. Sensations of something coming that hit you in that space between sleep and waking. You woke up from those images and threw them away. You called them fantasies. You thought you were just daydreaming to escape a hard reality. What it really is, your spirit is already inhabiting what's coming. Your body hasn't received the address yet. Your mind doesn't have the map. But your spirit went ahead. What you saw wasn't an invention. It was an anticipation. The future that was blocked was already being moved into by your spirit, while the anchor of the past was still holding the rest of you in place. If any of these signs hit home while you were listening, type freedom in the comments. You aren't just responding to a list. You are acknowledging out loud what heaven was already doing, and an open confession carries a different spiritual weight than a silent thought. Close your eyes for a second. Take a deep breath. What I'm about to tell you doesn't work if your attention is divided. There's a man in the Bible who lived exactly what you're living. His name was Abraham, and his story starts with God coming to him with an instruction that, if you heard it today, would seem so incomplete it would be useless. Leave your country, leave your family, leave what you know, and go to the land I will show you. It wasn't, go to this specific city at this specific address. It was, go and I'll show you on the way. Abraham was removed without a route, without a map, without a destination revealed in advance. He woke up one day and the instruction was clear. What had been his entire life was no longer where he was supposed to be. And the text doesn't record some big revelation about why. It doesn't say God showed him the whole future on a screen before he took the first step. It says Abraham went. Because Abraham understood something most people take years to learn. Removal, when it comes from God, isn't the end of the story. It's the first word of the calling. You didn't choose the removal you went through. But Abraham didn't choose his either. What Abraham chose was what to do after hearing that the place he was in was no longer the place. And the choice was to walk, without the full map, without the certainty that it would work, with only the certainty that the voice that told him to leave was more trustworthy than the security of staying. There's also a process in nature that looks violent until you understand what it produces. When an expert gardener prunes a vine, what falls looks like immediate loss. The cut branch hits the ground. It's separated from the plant. To someone who doesn't know the process, it looks like mindless destruction. It looks like the gardener is ruining what was growing. But here's what's actually happening. The sap that was feeding that branch doesn't disappear when the branch falls. It stays inside the vine. And now that it isn't being divided by the branch that was taken away, it goes entirely into the branches that are actually producing fruit. Pruning doesn't diminish the vine, it redistributes its strength. What was cut off wasn't weak. It was serving a purpose that had come to an end. And when that purpose ends and the branch stays anyway, it starts to drain the strength that should be going to what still has a future. The gardener doesn't prune because he's angry with the branch. He prunes because he knows the vine better than the branch knows itself. If you are Abraham, removed without a map yet, type Abraham in the comments. If you are the vine, pruned so that your strength can go into what's actually going to bear fruit, type vine. It doesn't matter which image hit deeper. Both are in the same position, between the cut and the harvest, not between the cut and the end. Let me stop for a full minute. You recognize the signs. The longing for what never gave you peace. The doors closing through no fault of your own. The strangeness with what used to feed you. The stillness in the middle of chaos. The dreams of what hasn't arrived yet. You saw in Abraham that being removed without a map isn't punishment. It's the start of a calling. You saw in the vine that the pruning that looks like destruction is actually a redistribution of power. The past wasn't holding on to your future to protect you. It was holding on to your future because it was an anchor. And the blockage wasn't in front of you, waiting for you. It was behind you, holding you by the feet. I held on to what belongs to you while what no longer belonged to you had to be removed. I saw every night you spent taking inventory of what hasn't arrived yet. I was there for every single one, not as a distant witness, but present. I saw the weight of every item on that list. I saw what every name cost you when it crossed your mind in the dark. You carried a weight that wasn't yours to carry anymore, out of loyalty, out of love for what was real, because you hadn't been given permission to let go. And I saw all of it, and I still made the cut. Because the future that's coming couldn't arrive while the anchor was still there. And now, it's gone. Not just promised, released. And here is who you are in the middle of all this. This is what heaven calls you when it speaks about you. First identity, set apart for the next. You held on to the past out of loyalty, not out of weakness. Heaven saw the honesty of your attachment. It saw that you weren't stuck because you were a coward. You were stuck because you loved what was real, what meant something, what cost you time and hope. And I honor that. I saw the nobility of someone who doesn't just walk away from what they loved. And I still made the cut, because the next that is coming needs you whole, not divided between what was and what is arriving. I named you set apart for the next, before you even realized the removal had happened. The next already has a name that the past can't even pronounce. It was prepared for the version of you that emerges after the cut, not the version that existed before. This identity gives you permission. Stop blaming yourself for the removal. Stop replaying decisions trying to find a mistake that doesn't exist. Stop trying to rebuild with your own hands what heaven intentionally dismantled. What was undone by divine hands should not be put back together by human ones. You are set apart for the next, and the next is already moving toward you. Second identity, bearer of a sealed future. The future you can't see yet has already been decreed. It has an address. It has provisions set aside and guarded. It has a name. The blockage that existed wasn't an absence of a destination. It was the presence of the past occupying the space the future needs to land. I wasn't ignoring you while the future was taking its time. I was removing what was blocking the future from moving toward you. You thought you were waiting for permission to start. The permission has existed since before you were born. What existed was an obstacle, and the obstacle has been removed. You aren't someone waiting to see if you'll get something. You are the bearer of something that has already been sealed in heaven and is currently arriving in the physical world. The difference between those two positions isn't subtle. It's the difference between begging and inheritance. This identity gives you permission. Act starting today like someone who has already received their future. Not like someone waiting for confirmation that they deserve it. Not like someone who needs to understand the whole process before taking a step, but like someone who owns what's coming and is simply walking toward what already exists in heaven and is descending into view. Third identity, cycle breaker. The removal that happened to you isn't just about you. This is what the enemy most wants you to miss. Because if you understand the real dimension of what's happening, you won't back down. This wasn't just a personal adjustment in your life. There is an entire lineage that starts a new pattern in this moment. There are people who will come after you. Sons, daughters, souls connected to your story, who will never have to carry what you carried because you were the point where the cycle stopped. You were chosen not just to live differently, but to be the divide between what was normal and what will be normal. I saw what your family line carried. I saw the patterns that reached you through generations. I chose you to be the breaking point, not because you're the strongest or the most prepared, but because you were the first one who said, yes, enough for me to act. This wasn't an accident. This was a designation. This identity gives you permission. Declare that the old cycle ended with you. That what's coming doesn't carry the weight of what was. You aren't the continuation of a pattern that always existed. You are the beginning of a pattern that has never existed before. And that declaration carries a spiritual weight that goes far beyond your individual life. Type in the comments the name of the identity that hit you the hardest. Set apart for the next, bearer of a sealed future, or cycle breaker. And if you aren't subscribed yet, do it now. This message is going to keep finding you. Now the time for the protocol has come. The Breakthrough Protocol. 3 movements to step into the future that starts today. This isn't spiritual theory to be tucked away. It is action to be taken. Starting today. Not when you're ready, not when things get better. Today. First movement. Name out loud what was removed. Not in your head. Out loud. With real words coming out of your mouth. Because what doesn't have a name keeps its power. Unprocessed grief anchors you to the past like an invisible chain that no one else can see, but you feel it every time you try to move and realize something is pulling you back. When you name what was removed, you do 2 things at once. You honor what was real, and you close the loop on what was left open. It might be a person. It might be a version of yourself that doesn't exist anymore. It might be a dream you stopped talking about. It might be a phase of life that ended before you could say goodbye. Whatever it is, say the name. Out loud. Today. Second movement. Release it in specific prayer, not a generic prayer where you ask for God's will to be done without getting into the details. A prayer where you name what was removed and you say, in your own words, I acknowledge that heaven has moved. I acknowledge that this removal wasn't a mistake or an abandonment. It was a divine act, and I agree with what was done. That agreement isn't passive resignation. It's active cooperation with what heaven has already decided, and cooperation opens the channel through which the next can finally arrive. When you agree to the surgery, the healing can finally begin. Third movement. Take a physical step toward the future today. Not tomorrow. Not when it feels safer. Not when you have more clarity. Today. A concrete movement that signals to your spirit that your body has accepted the breakthrough. Because the spirit needs the body to confirm. Confirmation comes through movement. It might be a phone call you've been putting off for weeks. It might be signing up for something that your future requires you to be part of. It might be a conversation you were avoiding because having that talk is admitting a new chapter is starting. It might be writing the first paragraph of something that's been sitting in your drafts for months. Only you know what the movement is. But there is one, and you know what it is while I'm speaking. Do it today. The sign that the protocol was received isn't immediate relief. It isn't euphoria. It's stillness. The same stillness from the fourth sign. A steady calm that indicates the spirit has nodded, that what was delivered has been received. When that stillness hits, you'll know. If you are receiving this protocol and you commit to these 3 movements, type "received" in the comments. In the next 72 hours, 3 things are going to be thrown at you. Not as a possibility, as a certainty. You need to know their names so you aren't blindsided. The first is edited nostalgia. The enemy is going to edit your memories over the next few hours. He's going to take what was actually exhaustion and present it as peace. He's going to take what was draining you and show it as nurturing. He's going to make what was removed look exactly like what you needed now that it's no longer available. He's going to make you want to go back to what was blocking you by using a version of the past that never existed. Edited memory is his most effective tool because it feels genuine. It feels like you're just remembering. But it isn't a memory. It's a rewrite. When that happens, and it will, remember what you heard here. That thing never gave you real peace. The peace you're missing never came from there. The second is paralysis by confusion. It's going to arrive disguised as spiritual maturity. It's going to say, wait until you understand the why before you move. Wait for total clarity. Wait until you're ready. This is going to sound reasonable. It's going to sound like the sensible posture of someone who has learned not to act on impulse. What it really is, a trap designed specifically for someone like you. Someone who is careful, who thinks before they act, who takes the weight of decisions seriously. The enemy uses your strengths against you. Prudence is a virtue. Paralysis is a prison that looks like a virtue. Abraham didn't understand the destination before he took the first step. The step is what started the revelation. The third is removal guilt. This arrives disguised as responsibility. It's going to make you revisit old decisions with a magnifying glass. It's going to find the one moment where you could have done something different and build an entire narrative that what was removed was a consequence of your failure. It's going to say, you weren't removed, you were rejected. It's going to say, you weren't pruned, you were discarded. It's going to say, if you had acted differently, you'd still be there. This isn't mature responsibility. It is a lie dressed in the voice of your own conscience, which is the most convincing disguise there is. It's the internal enemy, the voice that doesn't come from outside, but from inside, with your own tone and your own cadence, telling you the promised future is for everyone else. For people who didn't lose what you lost. For people who started earlier or had more resources. That voice will sound like discernment. Like someone who has learned not to have high expectations so they don't get hurt. It isn't discernment. It's the last link of the chain that was cut, trying to weld itself back together from the inside. Type protected in the comments. The decree has been sealed over you now. Put your right hand on your chest. Feel your heartbeat. Feet firm on the ground. Not the posture of someone begging for something they aren't sure they'll get. The posture of someone receiving what has already been guaranteed. Take a deep breath. Let it out slow. One more time. Stay in that position while I speak. Now, surrender it. Out loud or in silence, but with real intention. Surrender the guilt of the removal. Say it. Heaven acted. I didn't fail. What was removed by hands that see further than my eyes can reach. I let go of the guilt now. Surrender the grief for the past that was keeping the future from arriving. What was real had value. The time you invested meant something. The love you gave was genuine, and the time has passed. You can honor what was without being held by it, because honoring and holding on are two different things, and heaven is inviting you to honor without being trapped. Surrender the fear that the blockage will come back. The cut was made once, and it is permanent. What was removed by heaven doesn't sneak back in through the back door because you weren't looking. The cut is final. Trusting that isn't naive. It's faith based on the character of the one who made the cut. I know the nights you spent taking inventory of what hasn't arrived yet. I was there for every single one. Not watching from a distance. Present. I saw every item on the list. I saw what every name cost you in the dark. I saw the moment you turned over and tried to force yourself to sleep just so you'd stop thinking. And the thoughts kept coming anyway. I was in that moment, and I want you to know, those nights weren't a waste. They were the processing required for someone being prepared for something that doesn't fit the version of you that you were before. I saw you in the mirror early, before the world woke up, not recognizing who was on the other side. I saw that look in your eyes. The look of someone who knows who they were, is gone, and doesn't know who is coming yet. And I know that image scared you. That gap between identities is the most terrifying place to be. But I want you to know what that image was really showing you. It wasn't the absence of who you were. It was the space for who you are becoming. And soon, when you look in the mirror again, you aren't going to see that empty space. You're going to see the presence of the one who arrived. You're going to see the face of someone who went through the cut and came out the other side whole. It's going to be you, with a new name that the past couldn't even pronounce. You aren't late. You are being prepared. What is coming for you isn't a consolation prize for what you lost. It isn't a pity award for going through hard times. It is what has always been decreed, sealed in heaven, waiting for the moment the anchor was cut so it could finally move toward you. From a nameless identity to a named one. From a blocked future to a released one. From a cycle that repeated to a cycle that broke. From waiting without a reason to waiting with a purpose that finally has a name. It is done over you. Over your mind, which is going to start seeing differently what it looked at for so long without seeing. Over your relationships, which are going to reflect who you are becoming, not who you were. Over your timing, which heaven manages in a way you can't manage on your own. Over everything involved in what was received here today. What was cut will not be reattached. What was released will not be blocked again. What was declared in this place was declared with authority that goes far beyond this voice and this screen. Now say it out loud, not in your head, out loud, with your mouth, with your own voice. Say, the past no longer has an address in my future. Say it again, louder. The past no longer has an address in my future. Amen. Type done in the comments. Not because it's an empty ritual, because what you confess in the open, heaven records differently than what stays in silence. Done is your confirmation that what was said here was received, not just heard. There is a person in your life right now while I'm speaking that you know is stuck in the past. You already know who it is. Their name came to you while I was talking. Someone taking inventory in the middle of the night. Someone at the mirror who doesn't recognize themselves. Someone carrying the weight of something that's already been removed but hasn't been named yet. Send this message to them. Now before you close this video, because they need this word today. And if they want to go deeper than what this message brought, the link is in the first comment, waiting for them the same way it waited for you. The next video is going to talk about what heaven has reserved specifically for those who went through the removal and didn't look back. For those who did the protocol. For those who declared it. For those who walked out the other side of the cut. Don't miss it. It is done. You are not the same person you were when this message started. You seek. You dedicate yourself. You do everything right, and yet abundance never comes. And the worst part, you start wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're being heard up above, if it's meant for you at all. It's not a lack of faith or worthiness. It's a spiritual blockage that ordinary prayer alone cannot break. The Miracle Journal unblocks this in 21 days with a spiritual protocol that works exactly where your prayer doesn't reach. Along with the journal, you'll also receive as a gift the prayer guide and the Psalms manual with the most powerful sacred practices and texts to deepen your transformation. To claim your version of the journal, tap the link in the comments right below this video.